Hi, everyone, and welcome to my home office here in Copenhagen. I guess some of you already know me, but I'll introduce myself anyway. My name is Elizabeth Torres. I go by the name of Madame Neverstop. I'm a poet, multimedia artist, and translator, originally from Colombia and raised in the United States, and now residing here in Denmark, where I'm the director of a magazine and gallery called Red Door. And I'm also a cultural organizer and collaborator in various projects. The reason why I am speaking to you today has a lot to do with all of that encompasses my work. Of course, poetry, but also my passion for something more complicated, more intricate, that is created through the language of poetry, but that is considered multimedia work. I went to school in New Jersey for media and film degree at Kane University, and have been working on film and radio, podcasting, all of my life. Everything that has to do with the different technologies that allow us to deliver messages in a different way that might permit for the reaching of new audiences. And this is important because it has allowed me to create what some people call experimental poetry. So, not just the performative poetry that one reads, but also the inclusion of music and of video and even animation in my personal work, which adds a different texture to the performances whenever I get a chance to share it. So before I continue the stories and subject that I want to talk to you about today, I have to start with a poem. It's called Getting On With It, and it is a short film that I created using a phone as the main camera at the beginning of the lockdown, of course, out of boredom and desperation, in need of seeking and reaching my audience in a different way. The book that came out with that poem, it's called The Ways of the Firefly. I can't say it in German, but it's a book in English and German, published by Moloko Plus in 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic, meaning I missed out on the whole tour and presentation of it. So at least I could do this film that you're about to see in order to let the world know that this book exists.
Seagulls, seagulls, seagulls. Seagulls soar through the sky with ease. They know what to look for and where to find it. They let out a screech here and there. It paints the songs of the ocean with hints of comedy. Then they disappear in the horizon. What is left is the galloping sea waves arriving and arriving, but never really here. People tend to have ideas. They have solutions for problems you haven't presented. Urgencies and timelines to tighten the shoelaces, all under the pretense of affection. People worry so much about things that don't concern them, always finding neat tricks for your salvation. People know no better than to intervene. It proves their godlikeness and ample hearts. I soar through the streets with ease. I know what to look look for and where to find it. I soar through the streets with ease. I know what to look for and where to find it. I let out a screech here and there. It stains the days with hints of sorrow. Then I get lost into the night. What is left is the sparkles of fire, arriving and arriving, arriving and arriving, arriving and arriving, but never really here. But never really here.
Apart from being able to participate in various festivals around the world with this film, I learned of the platforms that one uses when wanting to promote one's short films, experimental and poetry films. Something that I hadn't actually tapped into because I was busy with all these other projects. But the lockdown gave me the time, if not the energy, but at least the time to research a little bit more on ways how I could promote this film and reach different audiences. Simultaneously, there was another project that I created, which I had been dreaming of creating for a very long time. And this goes back to my background as a Colombian poet and as a Colombian child, because Colombia, in spite of being most often drowning in violence and darkness, in the social conflict that has taken the lives of at least 200 activists only this year and so many throughout the history of the country, is also an incredibly poetic place, a country that is full of culture, full of hunger for beauty and for a celebration of life expressed through every possible media. And that means that as a child, I was surrounded by it everywhere I went. And my parents took me to one of these places that celebrates culture, cultural house, of course, a place that celebrates poetry specifically. It was the home of a modernist poet called Jose Asuncion Silva. The name is correct, the title I'm not sure of the time, but Jose Asuncion Silva wrote what to me is classical, beautiful poetry. And after he passed away, his home became a poetry foundation. In this poetry foundation, there was a room called La Fonoteca. And in this Fonoteca, there were cassettes all over the place, kind of like arriving to a tiny library, but of cassettes instead. The selection was mainly Latin American poetry, classical poetry, the usual Neruda and Lorca and the generation of 27 and so on. But arriving there as a child and asking for a pair of headphones and asking for access to tapping into this world of poetry read by its authors really made a difference in my life because it showed me that poetry has a lot to do with how it's performed or how it's written to be performed, so that there was a musical sense, a musical connection, a rhythm in the poetry that maybe only the author knows, and that sometimes when you read it without knowing it, you miss out on. And I always dreamt of having my very own phonotheque somehow. I didn't know exactly how, but my plan was one day I shall have a phonotheque as well. And sitting here at home in my little beautiful cage of creativity because of the pandemic, because of not being able to perform or travel to festivals or be in contact with all my colleagues around the world who, as me, exist through these connections and interactions, it left me thinking, and I realized that it was time to start the Poetic Phonoteque. The Poetic Phonoteque started in 2020, uh, April, I believe, on the International Poetry Day, to bring poetry in the voice of their authors to an international community, isolated, of course, by the pandemic. The collection now houses over 100 audio poems that were sent from all over the world, and this is this is done without any type of advertising, any type of sponsorship, and any type of corporate or governmental intervention. It was just a poet reaching out to fellow poets in their communities everywhere and saying, listen, send me your poem, send me your voice, tell me what's in your mind right now, and allow me to put it as part of this permanent collection of poetry that I'm creating online, so that people like us, the rest of us poets and the rest of us creators and admirers of poetry, can also enjoy it for free, with no ads, no memberships of any kind. It's just something that all of us have access to. And then, as time passed and the collection kept growing, I had the opportunity of starting a collaboration with a cultural house here in Copenhagen. And do not laugh at my Danish, but it's a Kulturhuset Islandsbrygge, and that's Islandsbrygge. It's a part of Copenhagen that is super beautiful, also because it's got the water right in front of it, and they do all these amazing events. And I am grateful to, in the past, I've organized a few events as well there of poetry. But this time I had the opportunity of presenting the Poetic Phonoteque to them and a new room that they have built at the very entrance of the culture house when you arrive, so in between the water and the entrance of the culture house, a room that is specifically focused on nature. The BioCube is what it's called. So originally, the collaboration was meant to be allow me to turn this into the official home of the Poetic Phonoteque here in Copenhagen. And in exchange, you get to be the home of this entire collection whenever there's no events happening in your cube. So we did this during the summer of 2021, and it was definitely an incredible experience because we also got to combine it with the work done by Danish authors who were already collaborating with them. So we created a brand new website for the Poetic Phonoteque, so that it wasn't just a little page on my Red Door gallery and magazine website, but its own website. And we sent a second call just for environmental poetry. And then it started raining poems, green poems, which is so incredibly moving and exciting because it gives me access to knowing what our concerns are as different communities, but as a society as well, right now that we're dealing with a climate crisis. The way I envision this a Poetic Phonoteque, this collection, is that it can continue expanding so that it stops being something that I created for all of us, but it is something that some of us run in our cities as representatives of this phonotheque, so that many more of us can enjoy it, and so that our thoughts, our concerns, our ideas, our emotions of the current time, of this very crucial present, are documented. One of the ways to do this, of course, is by theme. We can also archive it and or organize it, I guess, by language and by country or continent, location, emotion, whatever. But right now, I'm thinking the easiest way is to focus on the themes that are important to us, and this is why the first one is the collaboration with Kulturhuset and the subject of environmental awareness, which brings me to the very exciting announcement of a poetry film festival that we decided to create together. It's called Nature and Culture International Poetry Film Festival. It is a physical, well, it is a hybrid event. It is a physical and virtual poetry film festival. And by saying poetry film, it doesn't mean that it is only poetry presented on camera. On the contrary, it is a very varied festival because it contains documentaries, animation, experimental short films, and of course, poetry films. There's even some songs as well. And all of this is focused on the subject of climate, environment, nature, with poetry as the threading line. I had the opportunity of working with two judges for the selection of over 200, it was 267 films that arrived from over 50 countries. Quite a wonderful success and quite a surprise as well to receive such immediate response and so talented as well. And we have selected the films. We're still in the process of notifying all the people who got selected so that we can present the festival on 2 days specifically. It is on November 21st and on November 28th of 2021 here in Copenhagen at Kulturhuset Islandsbrygge, and that's Islandsbrygge 18, the address here in Copenhagen. But additionally, it will be streaming for 1 week so people can actually enjoy the whole collection that arrived during a week from the 20th of November to the 30th. There was another aspect to the festival that was very important to me, to this collaboration, because I have always kind of been a little bit in a position of calling things a festival and of pushing the agenda of so many things happening in one time and then disappearing. I'm always interested in the remaining connections and the collaborations and things that have a lasting effect. Maybe because of the idea of permanence being important to me. So the films that were submitted, of course, vary very much in style and subject. Everything, of course, has the connection of environment and poetry, but all the ones that were submitted as poetry films, whether or not they connect directly to the festival's selection, will be included in the archive of the Poetic Phonoteque on the website, which you can see at poeticphonotheque.com. This means that we already have almost 100 films, poetry films, that are accessible for free for everyone to see on that website, in addition to all the audios that we had already, the royal we and the team of people who are collaborating with for this project, that had been collected in the Poetic Phonoteque. So I definitely want to encourage you to both send me your poem, your voice to add to this collection. Poeticphonotheque.com has a part of the website, a page where you click on submit, and we were very lucky to get it customized. There's a plugin for you to hit record directly on the website and record your voice, record your poem, and add your voice to the collection. So you can do that. Or if for some reason you have a short film, poetry film that is related to poetry, of course, in one way or another, and that belongs to this collection, then send it over to Poetic Phonoteque. Go on the website, and then where it says contact, there's the email. I'll put it down here. But send me your videos as well, so that they can be part of the collection. Now, there's a lot more that is happening with this International Poetry Film Festival. As you might have already imagined, the collaboration at the French Tranas is, of course, very important to the Poetic Phonotheque, because now Copenhagen has a base with Kulturhuset Islandsbrücke, and then it will also have a base in Sweden with the French, with the collaboration with Litteraturcentrum and with Cultivera, of course, so that the Poetic Phonotheque can also be shared and hosted in Sweden as our sibling organization, and so that we can continue expanding it with other initiatives that are related to mixed media, to multimedia, and of course to poetry. I had the luck of inviting one of the previously presented artists in Red Door magazine. He wrote from Argentina. He resides in Barcelona, I believe, somewhere in Spain. And he wrote because he wanted to be illustrating one of the issues of the magazine. So for resilience, this artist, Leonardo Flores, created a bunch of fantastic illustrations for the magazine. And this is why I knew he's the one I need to collaborate with when I got the chance of commissioning him for creating the posters of the festival, which I will show you here. I think, well, these are the test prints, so they're kind of tiny compared to the actual A3 size, but they're printed in, you can't smell it and taste it from here, but you can see that it is very thick recycled paper. And I asked Leonardo to design a series of posters that were inspired by endangered species. So you can see that this one is the aquatic and this one is like the terrestrial one. And then there's two more here. One which is the aerial one. Clearly speaks of our relationship with the planet, how we're treating the world around us, and how it is very much so our responsibility that we're losing so many wonderful creatures, and soon possibly also ourselves. This one over here involves all three types of species, and this one is the cover of a book that the municipality of Copenhagen has decided to sponsor. So I am very much a busy bee right now, putting together this book of all the poetry and all the stills and synopsis and bios of everyone who is participating in this festival. It will be printed sustainably, locally, on recycled paper here in Copenhagen, distributed during the festival, given copies, of course, to the participants, and in general, it will also be available at the Red Door website and at the gallery. But the idea is to document this first festival existing and bringing all of us together once more after the pandemic separated us and kept us at wait for so long. I am very, very excited to be part of this huge project, to be the crazy talkative person behind the curtain for all of this, because these are things that very much matter to me. In essence, of course, I believe that poetry is the leading language and connector and philosophy that makes the world spin. So the fact that we have poetry in common is already a gigantic factor in a long and everlasting friendship and the possibility of many collaborations to come. The fact that I can, through the Poetic Phonoteque, offer your voices a space of collaboration and documentation of your work is very exciting. So I am also working on establishing a base for the Poetic Phonoteque in other cities with other festivals, and doing, of course, other future projects as well, not just in Scandinavia, because ideally we can multiply the effects. And the subject of environmental awareness is one that should be in all of our mouths. And if poetry is the way that we deliver these important messages, then so be it, because something needs to be done to change our individual behavioral patterns as well as our government's response to the current crisis. Artists usually lead the way, so why should it be any different now that we most need to create this awareness? So I invite you to save the date, November 21st and 28th at Kulturhuset Estlandsbrogge. That's where the festival will be happening. I invite you also to save the website poeticphonotheque.com and constantly check it to see the many videos and audios of poetry that are arriving. And of course, during the 20th and to the 30th of November, to enjoy the incredible selection of all types of films. I have so many favorites, and I can't wait to share all of them with you. Check out the website and check out reddoormagazine.com for interviews and upcoming podcast chats with some of the filmmakers. There is plenty of content of excellent quality arriving from all over the world, and I look very much forward to hearing your feedback and to knowing that you too were moved and inspired by it as I am. I leave you with a little trailer, a little preview of what's to come for the festival, and I thank everyone at French Intranos for their collaboration, for their support, and for their constant attention and care to this poetry takeover. Never stop.
Archives murmur circulates around. Archive lets originals breathe. You can't tamper with archive. It's a strange cosmology.
I wanted to see the white and gold room where they kept the possible things, not yet things. And I think I wanted what was inside the window frame to be more impressionistic.
Every day, an apocalypse. Australia burns, Venice floods, the Arctic hotter than Alabama, a deluge in Alice, California incinerates.
The heat. So slather my resilience. Coat your crackling spirit, receive me. Receive me.
Tonight will be recycled in my mind until we're clinging onto life like polar bears to ice. We'll drift for decades on a raft of thick debris, debating what our desert island disc will be, until at last we part with it.
Sit on plastic chairs around plastic tables draped with plastic. Use plastic spoons to heap food on plastic plates.
1,000 years later, I smashed stone with stone on the block's stairwell.
Seagulls.